Welcome to Season 2 of Difference Talks, brought to you by the LeBeau Marketing, Communications, and Training Team. Our guests are inspiring people who share their stories of brand differentiation. Based on our book, The Power of Differentiation, our goal is to inspire 1 million people with the message that winning hearts and minds are the first step in growing market share. Now, on with the show.
Welcome, everybody, to Difference Talks. I'm Barry LeBeau. I'm the CEO. I am the founder of LeBeau Marketing, Communications, and Training, author of The Power of Differentiation. Rebecca Homkes is our guest today. She is an author. She is a professor at the London Business School, at Duke. She also is very involved with Young Presidents Organization and their training program, which I'm very familiar with, and she consults worldwide. She's going to talk today about uncertainty. That's what we live in. That's what we deal with. And she's going to let us know that that's not a negative word and that it actually offers opportunity. So, Rebecca, welcome to the show. Tell a little bit about yourself, and I've got a lot of questions for you.
Awesome. Well, first of all, Barry, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to our conversation for a while. So, as you mentioned, yes, I do teach at two business schools, both London Business School and Duke, but I spend every single day working with executive teams and entrepreneurs who want to grow their business. And where I'm really passionate is not just growth, but what I call breakthrough growth. Those leaders who are looking to bust out of any kind of rut and really do something different. Not just for the money, but something different for their own shareholders and stakeholders. So that's what I'm focused on, especially in the world of increasing uncertainty.
Well, I almost think you could say this any time over the last 50 years, but I think things are very uncertain today.
Yeah.
And I read on LinkedIn, this industry is going to crumble and that one's going to fall apart. And then this technology is going to destroy us and all of these things. What I think is interesting for our audience to hear is that uncertainty is actually a neutral term. It is not a negative. So when you hear that, oh my gosh, things are so uncertain, they're chaotic, the natural response is, oh my gosh, we're in trouble. Your opinion is what, Rebecca?
Well, let's start with that first premise is that if you speak to leaders, and I like to ask, can you remember when you run your business through a certain time? We have always made decisions when facing uncertainty, but I do get a challenge back, right? And so when I speak to leaders, especially in Silicon Valley, who have run companies through many of the dot-com booms and crashes, they'll say we could always take a certain element of geopolitical like uncertainty is kind of a given, and now that's escalating too, and of course our technology is changing faster. So I think empirically we are in a faster rate of change, even if uncertainty isn't new. But something about the word uncertainty I noticed a while ago, long before COVID or Brexit or AI, and I want you to listen for this too, Barry, is that when leaders and I speak to each other about uncertainty, we tend to put a word before it that means it's going to be bad. We ask each other, hey, how's your team managing uncertainty? Or how are you handling uncertainty? Or how are you thinking about getting through this uncertainty? We almost always preface it with a word before that signals to our brain that this thing's going to be bad. So I like to start with some definitions. The definition of uncertainty is a series of future events which may or may not occur. Whether or not those events are good or bad depends on what we're trying to do and how we're set up.
So it would be far better if I said to you, hey, how are you enjoying uncertainty?
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Right.
And it
Because
sounds
then you
silly
get,
saying that, right? It sounds silly saying that, but our brains are framed very easily, and framing is very powerful, and framing is very difficult to bust out of. And so if we're speaking about it this way, it's going to permeate throughout our organization, right? And reframing it as uncertainty is a great time to be growing or running a business for many reasons. But the first part is move away from the negativity.
you're sitting down with CEOs all over the
Mhm.
world,
Yes.
and you're trying to coach them. You're trying to motivate them, open their eyes. What are you seeing that they are trying to navigate through, and how do you help them? What are some of the secrets or some of the ahas that our audience might go, oh my gosh, that's me?
Well, maybe, Barry, let's start with common, not awesome responses, right? So I see three typical responses, and I'm sure you've seen some of these as well. The first typical response to uncertainty is to ignore it, is to say, look, I've got a plan. The plan is working. Yes, things around me are changing, but like I've got this. I call it the I've got this strategy, right? And then this happens especially to leaders who have run a company successfully through previous versions of uncertainty. I've labeled this delusion, right? The second, which we're seeing so much of right now, is paralysis, where you say to your team, let's just wait until after the summer, when things settle down, or let's wait until the autumn when we have more clarity. And we keep punting these decisions kind of months, sometimes a year down the road until we have this mythical element of clarity, right? That's paralysis. You're putting your company in this constant holding pattern. And then the third typical response is just frenzy. Stuff's not working, you're uncomfortable, and you just move from any sort of midterm view to just tactical responses. So, delusion, paralysis, and frenzy are the most common responses. And that actually describes the majority of organizations when they're facing uncertainty. So, I always say if you can just take a breath and not engage in any of those three, you're already one step ahead of everybody else. And go back to that definition. It's a series of future events which may or may not occur. Whether or not those events are good or bad depends on what we're trying to do and how we're set up. That's what we're going to focus on. What do you want to do as an organization? Where do you want to be? And then let's get yourself set up to succeed regardless of the world around us that's changing.
What about the organization, Rebecca,
Yeah.
that says, okay, that all sounds great,
Yeah.
but we don't have all the information in yet. It's not
Mhm.
perfect yet. We need more time. We just can't move on the information that we do have at the moment. What do
Mhm.
you do? What do you say to them?
I love this question. Of course, we need to yes and the question, right? Rather than yes, but the question is, you've heard the cliche, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And that really links to data as well. And what you want organizations to do is shift from what I call planning to preparing. Now, we're not throwing planning away. Like operational planning is still part of your organization. But when it comes to setting these midterm directions and thinking about growth, you need to go to preparation mode. And in preparation mode, you're making decisions based on beliefs, not established facts. Now, I know that sounds scary, especially for the data scientists who have spent a lot of time and money building the data systems. But I didn't say, Barry, we're ignoring data. I'm saying we're making decisions based on beliefs, not waiting for established facts. You're watching those couple of trends really shaping the environment. Then you're articulating your belief. What's our midterm stance on how that trend will move? Then those beliefs form our choices. And at its simplest, just think of it this way. If, as an organization, you wait to make every decision until something is an established fact, there's no insight. Everybody has that, right? Leading or growing an industry and moving ahead is about making these decisions based on beliefs. Now, beliefs are just these midterm stances on how trends are going to move. We're going to test these beliefs as we execute. We're going to make all of these micro adjustments. You're never going to have perfect data, and that's okay. If you had perfect data, others would as well. You need to start moving ahead some of that and really focus on questions like, what data would I say that would make us think we should not pursue this? What additional data would give us more confidence in making this move? Move the question from we need more data to what insights are we lacking? What things do we need to test? And then sometimes it's not about a data set, it's about other tests that we could do in the market. A lot of all of this stuff about performing through uncertainty is changing the question that's asked.
Yeah, I've noticed that because you're kind of turning
Yeah.
it around and
Yes.
saying, instead of, okay, what information do we need to move? You're going,
Mhm.
okay, what information do we need to stop us
Yes.
from going down this path?
Mhm.
Let's go a little deeper if we can. There's
Yes.
planning,
Yes.
then there's preparation.
Yes.
What I'm picking up, Rebecca, is okay, planning's great. You got to have
Mhm.
a plan, of
Yeah.
course, but preparation means, and I'm asking you, but
Yeah.
I've read your book, so I
Mhm.
think I've got a handle on it, is being um, able to shift, to
Mhm.
pivot, to make a different move once you see things are rolling out in a pattern that you didn't anticipate, but you're
Mhm.
ready for it.
You're ready
It's
for it.
not part of the initial
Mhm.
plan, but we're prepared. So help if you could
Yeah.
illuminate a little deeper on there, because it's very easy to think I have a plan and I'm going to keep that plan intact.
And we reward leaders for sticking to the plan, right? And we often kind of have someone's part of performance review. Did they meet the commitments that they laid out in the plan? Like this is ingrained into everything in organizations, and this is part of the challenge of leading through uncertainty is we need to unlearn some of these behaviors in the right way. One of the most dangerous things that a leader can say to you if you ask him or her how things are going is when they say, "Oh, things are great. I'm just in heads down execution mode." And I think, well, what are you doing there? Right? Get out of that. Right? The worst place you want anybody to be is heads down execution mode. Planning is great, but preparation is the difference maker, right? Preparation means I am setting myself and my organization up to handle any of the shifts that come. And the big difference is making decisions based on beliefs, not waiting for established facts, as we mentioned. It's also very about saying, when do we need a direction rather than a fixed destination? Like maybe I don't have perfect clarity of where I want to be in 3 years, but I can give the team enough of a direction they can start moving there. It's about shifting from metrics to milestones. Again, we are so kind of programmed, we must have smart metrics and KPIs for everything. If you're trying to do new things in new markets, you should be optimizing to milestones, not precise metrics. And fundamentally, it's about robustness, not just efficiency. Efficiency is great, but efficiency without robustness will allow you to get through a downturn, but not uncertainty.
Well, you also talk in the book about efficiency and accuracy and how those work or don't
Mhm.
work. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, if you think about the trade-off between kind of precision, right, being
Right.
kind of exactly where you need to be, and accuracy, you can be incredibly precise but inaccurate, right? And that's not very helpful, right? And you want to strike the right balance between in what parts of my organization or my own personal career path, right, for those who are listening for their own career, do I need precision and where do I need accuracy, and not confuse the two. And that's where, again, I like to say, do we just need a direction, not a destination? Maybe we need to give some, because we need something. We need some sort of finish line to align activities and align decision making. But having that direction is just as helpful than a destination. Let's make it more tangible. By a direction, I want you to think about holding a compass. And you're saying to the team, hey, we're going northwest. A destination is giving a very precise milestone or marker. And that's about preparation. I'm building some robustness in, I've got some alignment, but I'm not prematurely anchoring the team in what could be a false destination.
Will you give a few examples of how a company has overcome the
Mhm.
uncertainty, the chaos in a
Mhm.
market to thrive?
There's so many examples, and I write about many of them in the book. I'll start with a smaller one, which I love, and it's one of my favorite cases, and it's Skanster Park, which is this large series of zoos and amusement parks in Scandinavia. And they faced incredible uncertainty, not just from COVID, but it was a very personal. The CEO of this company was a fourth generation family. And when COVID happened, he called me and he said, my great great grandfather got the company through the Spanish flu. My grandfather got it through World War One and Two. My father got it through the 70s. And in my generation, right, this company is going to go under. So extreme uncertainty, not just about when things would open, but what consumers would want to do with their spending habits when kind of the things did shift. And so they re-optimized their entire organization. Once they got through the survive phase, they did something very specific with the team. They realized that the mind share of growing through uncertainty is quite difficult and that they had to actually help the team out in doing so. So he split his team into two, an offense team and a defense team. Just think about a soccer
Hmm.
field or a football
Yeah.
field. And the defense team was focused very much on the survival metrics around cash and cost and customers and communication. The offense team was focused on the growth and the test and learns. And they had separate meetings, separate huddles, and that allowed them to have the mind share to really open up and do that. And they, even though they had a 20% capacity reduction, had their highest growth, their highest profitability, and their highest employee engagement year ever. Metrics they've kept going after that. But we see this as well with much bigger organizations as well. IKEA is a very famous story of a company who thrived through uncertainty. Everyone in IKEA's industry wanted them to die. The reason that they started outside of the main cities was the big entrenched competition kicked them out. And a lot of those innovations that we recognize this company with today happened by taking advantage of some of the uncertainty. Chance events in the market, being understaffed led to kind of consumers having to pack their own cars. But this was a company that just run differently, the same as Scott's Park. The leader said, let's just be open to what the environment is. Let's celebrate our employees testing and learning things. And that's a key difference, Barry, that this comes not from having a strategy on a page, but from leadership who put a lot of trust in their employees and said, let's embrace this uncertainty. Let's learn. Because again, organizations that learn faster are organizations that grow faster.
I love that you brought up the value of the employee being engaged and feeling like there's meaning in what they're doing. Please, before we go to break, share a little more of that, because that's an area that we have so much passion for.
Yeah. Growth is a team sport. And often when we talk about things like strategy or execution, or frankly, even culture, we focus all of our energy on the role of not just the CEO, but the C suite and the top leaders. And that role is absolutely critical. And I'll share with you that people ask me all the time what causes these journeys to fail. And I say the number one common factor in growth journeys failing is the leadership, right? And so there is a big responsibility around there. But growth is a team sport. I'm repeating on purpose. And it's about bringing the entire team along, involving the right people in the resetting process, thinking about engagement. But I'll share something with you, Barry. A lot of leaders understand this intuitively. And where this breaks down is actually a funny place in the process, is they confuse what I call a strategy challenge from a communication challenge, right? They understand the criticality of engagement and buy-in, but they try to solve it prematurely in the process. And when they're working on kind of thinking about what those differentiated priorities are, they keep adding priorities in because they want everyone to see themselves in the strategy. So instead of 3 or 4 real career growth priorities, it's 8 or 10, right? And each of them have a bunch of bucketed down things. And so what I ask leaders to do is I want you to break it into 2 challenges. The strategy challenge is what are those small set of differentiated priorities that will lead to differentiated growth? The communication engagement challenge is how do we communicate our shared vision and strategy in a way that everyone is bought in and wants to be a part of? But solve those 2 challenges separately. When you try to solve them together, you actually ruin your chance of either.
That's brilliant. When we come back, we're going to discuss technology and how it affects the whole concept of thriving during these chaotic times. We're going to go a little deeper into some other beliefs that Rebecca has. So we'll be right back on Difference Talks.
Difference Talks is a LaBeouf production. Our focus is differentiation, and we believe it's more important than ever to differentiate your brand and experience. Contact us at labeouf.com for a conversation. We'd love to connect with you.
We are back on Difference Talks. We are with Rebecca Homkes. I have her book. Buy her book. Give her some wonderful reviews. It's tremendous. It's called Survive, Reset, Thrive. All right, Rebecca, one thing in the book that I loved was you talked about teaching organizations versus learning organizations and how that affects our success. Take it away. Let's hear about this.
The number one differentiator of organizations that perform through uncertainty is learning velocity. Barry, it is such a number one. Number 2 isn't close, right? The number one differentiating is learning velocity. Organizations that learn faster are organizations that grow faster. Now, what's funny is when I talk to leaders about this, they say, oh, absolutely, Rebecca. We're a learning organization. We send folks to business schools and we have a book club and we do lots of lunch and learns. Cool. All good stuff, right? Keep doing all of that. That is being a teaching organization where you share things with each other. The learning I'm talking about is the learning that happens on the field, in the market with your customers and partners. That's what a learning organization is. Those that prioritize building the capability of learning and then making all those adjustments and adaptations. So move from being a teaching organization to a learning organization, and learning happens on the field. And the critical differentiator, if you'll let me, Barry, on this, is something called a learning loop. And this is the power of growing through uncertainty. You identify where your most critical learning loops are, because everything in growth is a loop, not a line. And a learning loop is a critical, repeatable activity for growth. So any activity your team is going to repeat, so it happens more than once, it's critical for growth. Identify those and then try to accelerate learning across those different learning loops across the organization.
All right. I'm a granular type of person.
Yeah.
So can we dig a little deeper? Are you saying that it's great to have a book club? It's great to send people to webinars, seminars, all that. That's great. There's nothing bad about that. It's great to do that. But we need to be out there with the clientele or the customer base, and we're learning what's important to them, and we're comparing notes with others in our company. Or please get deeper in there, because this is very, very interesting.
Now, we need to make sure that I'm on record saying, please continue to send your teams to business schools and all the wonderful programs that we have at business schools, right? So caveat over there.
Yeah.
When you're executing, anytime you're executing, let's think about opening a new market or launching a new product or onboarding a new key account, hiring a new team member. These are all learning loops, critical, repeatable activities. You go through a 3-step loop of you execute. So you do something in the market, you get an insight, then you embed that insight in the organization. So the next time you execute, you do it a little bit better, right? And think about that loop of execute, insight, embed. Now, that actually has a lot of friction in it, because when we're executing, we're so focused on executing the plan, we're not actually looking for insights, right? We're not actually recognizing we're getting learnings. We might get an insight, but then it's in our head. Maybe it's shared in a WhatsApp or an email or ad hoc in a meeting, but not captured in a way, which means it's not embedded. So the next time we use it, we can do it better. So if as an organization you say, these are the 4 most critical learning loops we have, we're going to focus on doing these better and faster, actively looking for insights, embedding them and using them. This is the ultimate differentiator, because every time you close that loop and repeat that activity the next time a little bit better and a little bit faster, you're getting ahead. In a market that's changing so much, learning's never over. So if you're always accelerating that learning, that's why it's the key differentiator.
Now, what is your insight to the leaders of very, very busy companies where people are in the moment? They're out there in the field, they're hiring, now they're going to hire someone else, they're doing this, and they haven't stopped to really go, wait a minute, what are we doing? Because what happens is, as you said, it's a loop. So if you do a lousy job of hiring and you don't really learn from it, you just keep doing a lousy job of hiring. What is your advice? How can you and how do you inspire these CEOs to change this?
So I love this question, because this is the friction point. We are all so busy. We are obsessed with being busy, right? That we don't prioritize any of this. And the punchline is, growth is a capability. You are growing in the market, but to build a growth organization is building a capability with your employees, your wider team, we've spoken about, with your top team. You need to make an explicit commitment as a leader. I want to be a growth company. It will not just happen to you, right? So that's it. You got to make, and I know I'm making it sound easier than it is, Barry, but that explicit commitment, I want to work to build a growth capability, a lot of leaders don't say. Once you make that public commitment to your organization, you're going to prioritize it. But now technology is our friend. 10 years ago, this was done in kludgy PowerPoints or Excel drives that we tried to share on shared docs and all of these aspects. Basic AI tools are super helpful, because now your sales team who's on the ground can just record very quick notes unstructured. We can use very simple AI tools to scan those, tag them, and pull out some of the key insights. So basic technology, basic sharing docs will allow you to start bringing these in. But no technology will help you, right, until you're very clear, this is what a learning loop is. These are the ones that we want to close. And as a leader, you're going to see me doing it too.
Do we need to choose which of those learning loops we want to focus on? Because otherwise, couldn't we just have 50 or 60 of them and go, oh my gosh?
Yeah, the number is infinite, right? So I do always recommend starting with some of the most critical ones where you can measure progress, right? So I'm working with some companies right now doing it on launching new products, or it could be, again, onboarding new key accounts or opening new markets. It is helpful to start on ones where you can see the progress and you can tangibly measure it. That's not saying you're going to limit yourself to just doing a few overall, but starting with a few allows you, again, to build that capability. Then you can start doing it at a higher scale than that.
All right, let's dive
Yeah.
into what you just discussed
Yeah.
briefly, technology and
Yeah.
AI.
Mhm.
Because right now, I would venture to say that in some of the cases that you work with, technology and AI, at least initially, is part of the uncertainty
Yes.
that they are fearing. So, is this technology specter, is it actually a positive, or could it go either way? And I'd like to hear what your advice is to those you do work with and our audience on AI and technology.
Every trend contains a growth opportunity. Your job as a leader is prioritizing which ones you're going to take. Every trend, whether it's tariffs, taxes, tensions, AI, etc., every trend has a growth opportunity. And I want to pause. We sometimes in organizations, we equate the word trend with risk. Okay, here's all of the trends that are happening of taxes, tariffs, tensions, AI. And we allow our team to refer to them as risks or challenges. Every trend is an opportunity, AI being one of those as well. A very common question I get is, well, if I know what strategy is now, Rebecca, like what's AI strategy? What's the definition of AI strategy? And that has a very simple and easy to remember definition because it doesn't exist, right? There's no such thing as an AI strategy. The role of AI, or artificial intelligence, is to enable, support, and accelerate your value creating strategy. If you don't know how you create value as an organization, AI cannot help. Your first step of really utilizing these technologies for growth is to identify how your differentiated growth journey looks like. What are our top few differentiating midterm priorities? Then we go through each of them and we say, how will AI enable, support, and accelerate it? And by accelerate it, how will we get faster customer insights, more personalizations, faster go to market, or help with efficiency or automation? So there is such a role. Every single question of the 6 we answer to build a growth strategy, there is a role of AI in helping it, but don't confuse the role of AI with the role of value creation.
AI is not a standalone
Yeah.
switch that you turn on and say, okay, now we're in good shape. You're saying it's here to support us, and we must know where we're going in
Yeah.
order to best utilize AI.
Yeah,
Utilize AI.
it's gonna open some new opportunities, right? But our role remains the same. What are those differentiated priorities that lead to differentiated growth? AI will enable, support, and remember, also accelerate those. Also accelerate those. In organizations where AI is held in the hands of a few tech members of the team in a different function structure, and everyone else is working on the business, quote unquote, purposely, we're not going to be creating differentiated value there. AI's role is fundamentally part of the value creating strategy, not a separate side project.
And of course, I love that you've said the word differentiation or
Yeah.
differentiated many times here,
Yeah.
because that's what is the
What it's
most
all about.
inspiring
Yeah.
thing for our company as well.
Yeah.
Well, in the world of commodities and being
Yeah.
commoditized, you have to be differentiated. And then when you look at this chaotic environment, you either then say, okay, we're going to homogenize, we're going to dumb down what we do, become cheaper, less unique, and then somehow that means you're going to succeed, which is, as we know, not going to happen. Or you have to do what, Rebecca, you are saying. All right, what are your 2 or 3 major insights you'd like to share? We've covered a lot today. Obviously, your book, Survive, Reset, and Thrive, is a must. Those that are listening today, they're business people. Some are in the C-suite. Share your 2 or 3 insights, if you could, before we close.
Well, let's stay on differentiation, right? Because I know it's a passion area of yours as well. And frankly, it's something that we've overconfused and overcomplicated, right? I won't tell you how many course hours we spend on it in business schools, right? And so I like to simplify it this way. you have what I call a right to win or differentiation when you have one of three things. You've got stuff others don't, you can do stuff others can't, or you can build a moat around your advantage. And that's pretty much it. You have no other options. You've got stuff others don't, you can do stuff others can't, or you can build a moat around your advantage. And if we tie AI in the fast changing technology is quickly competing away things we have others don't. It's making it easier to do things others can. What you have remaining is moats. So we sometimes use the term barriers to entry or switching cost. I like the term loyalty lock-in, which means your value proposition is so strong and so differentiated. Your customers are what we call in consumer goods, irrationally loyal to you. And Barry, reflecting, there's lots to talk about, are we going to a downturn or recession later this year? My reflection over the last couple months of conversation on this is that's all you've got. There's no such thing as a recession-proof business model or recession-proof industry. The only thing that's recession-proof is those moats. Such a strong, differentiated value proposition that your customers will not look away because the thought of not having that value proposition delivered, that friction is so high, they can't imagine it. And we have gotten lazy on this topic. So regardless of where an organization feels that they are, like in their uncertainty or growth journey, if you don't have absolute clarity on your differentiation, and that happens when if I walk in, everyone in your team can tell me what your right to win is and their role in delivering it. If that's not there, we don't have anything that can withstand the market. And then on recession, quit waiting for the market to tell you when it's a good time to grow. We often, get a lot of questions. Well, it's going to be a recession. What should I do now? It's going to be frothy. What should I do now? What are you talking about? Right? If you want to be a leader, I don't let the market tell me when it's a good time to grow. I let my growth strategy tell me when it's a good time to grow. Every time is a great time to grow, but uncertainty the best. And Barry, the reason uncertainty is a great time to grow is it's a great time to learn. And that is the ultimate differentiator. Again, organizations that learn faster are organizations that grow faster. The more uncertainty we face, the more excited you should get, because that means that the learning loops are going to be tighter. When uncertainty is high, honesty reigns. And when honesty reigns, you can learn faster. And again, learn faster, grow faster.
Well, Rebecca Homkes, you have been fantastic. Again, I want to remind everybody of your book, Survive, Reset, Thrive. Fantastic book. I ordered it. I have read it. I'm going to give it a wonderful review on Amazon. And that's what I ask everybody to please do after you read Rebecca's book. Thank you so much. I hope everybody enjoyed Rebecca's sharing today because it is really a reframing of our mindsets. It's looking at this chaos, this unknown, but not labeling it as this challenge, as this problem. It is an opportunity. And I love what you said toward the end. It's all about differentiation. And why allow the market to tell us when we will grow? That's up to us if we're leaders. So until next time, Difference Talks. Thanks everyone listening. And we thank Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Barry.
Thank you for joining us on Difference Talks. All of us at LeBov are proud to celebrate great people with inspiring messages. Difference Talks was created, produced, engineered, and performed by the LeBov team. Even the music is original. Contact us at lebov.com to learn how to differentiate your brand and give your team a sense of significance and meaning.